What if a virus caused humans to become zombies? Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the world as we know it has changed forever. Our story begins with a virus, one that doesn't just cause a regular sickness, but a terrifying transformation. This virus spreads quickly, infecting people through something as simple as a sneeze or a quick cough from someone nearby. But instead of regular symptoms like a fever or a sore throat, this virus rewires the human brain. It takes over, reducing once kind, normal people into zombie-like beings, driven purely by instinct and hunger. Now, how could such a virus work in reality? It might actually be simpler than we'd think. Scientists know there are already some parasites and viruses that influence behaviors in their hosts. For instance, the rabies virus can make animals more aggressive, pushing them to bite and spread the infection. But imagine this virus is even more advanced. It could spread not only through bites but also through the air, causing massive, fast-moving outbreaks. As the virus spreads, cities and towns around the world start experiencing unusual events. Hospitals fill up quickly as people flood in with symptoms that seem almost unreal. The infected don't just act sick, they become aggressive, almost primal, unable to recognize friends or family. It's as if they've lost their human identity, transformed into creatures driven by instinct and hunger, making them unpredictable and dangerous. In such a scenario, society would scramble to respond. Governments might initially try to keep everything under wraps, not wanting to cause widespread panic. But soon, the virus becomes impossible to contain, and even authorities realize the situation is far more than they can control. Strict quarantine zones are set up, and travel restrictions are placed worldwide. But it's too late. Cities, airports, and crowded spaces become dangerous hotspots as infected people roam the streets, causing more chaos with every encounter. If a virus had the power to turn people into zombies, human behavior and our need to survive would start changing instantly. Families would barricade themselves indoors, gathering supplies, hiding, trying to ride out the storm. Neighborhoods would be eerily silent, with streets empty and shops closed. It would feel like the world had gone into a deep freeze, waiting for something, anything, to happen. People would have to think about survival in ways they never imagined before. Food, water, and medicine would become precious resources, hoarded and traded as people look out for themselves and their loved ones. In such a chaotic world, a big question would arise. How do you protect yourself from zombies? Without modern police forces or rescue services available, people would turn to whatever tools and skills they have at hand. Those with knowledge of survival skills or first aid would suddenly become highly valuable in this new world. Communities might form small survival groups, pooling together supplies and resources for mutual protection. They'd have to be careful, constantly on guard, since one wrong move, one careless moment, could be all it takes to attract zombies to their location. In this new reality, technology might become both a blessing and a curse. Communication networks, if they're still running, would be vital for sharing information, warning others, and coordinating safe zones. But technology would also make people vulnerable. Imagine being on your phone when you should be keeping watch, or charging your device and attracting attention with the light. People would need to balance the advantages of staying informed with the risk of drawing zombies closer. Meanwhile, scientists and researchers in hidden labs worldwide would be working around the clock to study the virus and find a cure. They'd need samples from infected individuals, which would be incredibly dangerous to obtain. Brave volunteers or professional teams might venture out, risking everything to get close to the infected and bring samples back. These scientists might discover that the virus alters brain chemistry, targeting areas that control aggression and inhibition. But the problem is, it's spreading so fast that there's almost no time to find a cure before things spiral out of control. Society would inevitably split into groups with different philosophies on survival. Some people might argue for strict isolation, choosing to live in hiding and avoiding contact with anyone outside their immediate circle. Others might advocate for finding ways to defend themselves, even creating specialized weapons or learning martial skills. Then there would be those who believe that the only way to survive is by working together, forming communities with shared resources and responsibilities. Each of these approaches would come with its risks and rewards, and every choice would feel like a matter of life and death. The psychological toll of such a world would be unimaginable. Seeing friends or family members become infected, watching them change into something unrecognizable, would leave deep emotional scars. People would have to come to terms with the reality that their loved ones might no longer be who they were, and even more terrifyingly, they themselves could become zombies. Anxiety, stress, and fear would be constant companions in this world, making even the bravest among us question how long they can hold on. And as more time passes, we'd likely start seeing pockets of survivors trying to rebuild a new way of life. Safe zones might emerge, little islands of humanity surrounded by a sea of infected zombies. Within these safe zones, people would create their own rules and systems to maintain order, possibly even bringing back some form of government or leadership. These communities would also have to deal with limited resources, and rationing would become a daily reality. Everyone would have a role to play, and skills like farming, carpentry, and first aid would be essential. Now imagine what life would be like for a child growing up in this world. They would never know the world as we know it now. Instead of school and playgrounds, they'd grow up learning survival skills and self-defense from a young age. For these children, the idea of a peaceful, safe life would be more of a story than a memory. They'd be raised to be vigilant, to avoid unnecessary risks, and to treat every stranger with caution. Trust would become a rare commodity, given only to those within one's closest circle. Of course, not everyone would be fighting for survival in such a world. There would be those who try to take advantage of the chaos, people who use the opportunity to exploit others, looting and preying on the weak. In many ways, the real battle would be not just against zombies, but against other humans who have let fear or greed take over. Survival would depend on finding the right people to trust and avoiding those who would harm others to get ahead. At some point, humanity would have to face a choice. Do we continue trying to find a cure for this virus, or do we accept that zombies are a part of our new reality? Some people might argue that resources should be spent solely on defense and survival, while others would push for continued research, believing that a cure might one day restore everyone affected by the virus. The decision would be complex, and any wrong choice could mean the end of humanity as we know it. What if, against all odds, scientists find a cure, a way to reverse the effects of the virus? Suddenly, the nightmare could begin to end. Perhaps antidotes could be distributed, saving those recently infected, and even restoring some who have been zombies for longer. But the recovery process would be far from simple. The world would be left in ruins, and those who were infected might have to face the trauma and guilt of what they did while they were in their zombie-like state. Rebuilding society would be a long and painful journey, with people learning to trust again, to reconnect, and to rebuild homes, schools, and lives. If such a virus were to truly infect the world, it would be an ultimate test of humanity's resilience, kindness, and courage. We'd be forced to rediscover what truly matters: family, friendship, and the strength we find in each other. While such a virus is thankfully a work of fiction, thinking about how we might respond reminds us of the preciousness of our world and the connections we share. So let's appreciate our lives, the people around us, and the ordinary days we often take for granted, because in the end, it's these simple things that would give us hope, even in the darkest of times.